the unconscious mind does not recognize the negative.
Okay.
So if you're constantly telling yourself negative talk, or if you're constantly saying, I don't want to be fat, it's just hearing fat. So we switch the focus to what do I want? Healthy, fit. Focus on what you want. And that's why even with my staff, I won't start a coaching session with them until they tell me the number they want to earn for the year.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. And with me today for the second time is business coach, public speaker, entrepreneur, and author, Grant Gavin. Grant joined me on the show in episode 3. And 2 and a bit years down the line, we find ourselves reconnecting for episode 71. It was an absolute pleasure chatting to Grant once again as we discuss the art of self-improvement and how does one go about grinding through and being resilient enough and disciplined enough to get through the tough periods. The tough periods when you feel disillusioned, when you feel like you are not getting the results that you are deserving of relative to the effort that you're putting in. That and a whole host of other things like how to stack habits to make sure that you give yourself the best possible chance of success in whichever endeavor you are undertaking. Please be sure to check out Grant in the links below if you want to get hold of him or if you want to buy his awesome book, Thoughtonomy. Please like, share, subscribe, and enjoy. All right, Grant, round 2. Here we go.
Here we go.
Ready to rock and roll.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too, man. So, Grant, when we've spoken at length about your coaching career and that's continued to go from strength to strength, I want to do a bit of role play and I'm going to be a customer. I'm going to be a client. I've come to you and I'm going to share with you how I'm feeling at the moment. Full transparency, completely authentic. I'm feeling disillusioned. And this is the honest truth. This is not show business. I feel disillusioned. I was a bit grumpy last night. I was going through my socials and, we all try and be as proactive as we can to grow our profile online, etc., and grow our brand. And at the moment, I feel disillusioned. I feel like I'm doing the work. I feel like the appropriate response or level of growth, appropriate to or relevant to the amount of work that I'm putting in, is not being sort of returned. And I'm just grumpy about the situation. What would you say to me if I've come to you as you being my coach and I've come to you with this information?
Okay. Look, firstly, we've got to understand where do you want to be. Like, we can talk about what are you grumpy about or what are you disillusioned about, but where do you see yourself? What is it that you want? That's like the first thing. Like, what do you want? What is the goal? What is the thing that you want that's going to make you happy? Are you getting it? Are you not getting it?
Yeah.
So we start there. What are you aiming for that you feel you haven't got yet?
Yeah. I'd like to grow the podcast and I'd like to grow the presence online and to have some kind of the podcast has been growing in terms of listenership, but if you look at the social media aspect of it, it hasn't. It's grown a little bit, but it's like, in dribs and drabs, and I haven't grown that part of the podcast as quickly as I was hoping to have. So I would like to increase my reach in the online space, in social media.
Okay. And how might you be holding yourself back in this?
I perhaps don't do it often enough.
Okay.
So maybe it's a case of I'm not posting often enough. So 3 posts a week, for example, 2 to 3 posts, and then some stories. So maybe it's a case of I'm not doing enough of it.
Yeah. Is that a time thing, or is that just something that's...
It's a time thing. I mean, it's because this is a side hustle, right? So that's the thing.
That's what I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
And so there's 2 things. Firstly, you obviously want to do it. I know how hard it is to start a podcast or to start anything for that matter of fact. But you're doing 2 things. I remember I had a coach many, many years ago because I've got the real estate business, then I want to do the speaking and the coaching and the book. And I remember her saying to me once, Grant, until you step both feet into one of them, none of them are going to fly like you want them to. And I've always kept that in the back of my mind going, no, like look at all these people who do multiple things. But it's very, very true as well. Because when I'm busy with the real estate business, then I don't do as many speaking engagements. Or if I'm doing lots of speaking engagements, the business stagnates. So that's the first thing. But yeah, it always comes back to like, how am I holding myself? Because you can do anything that you want. And in fact, if you look at where you are now, how many years have you been doing this?
2 years.
Okay. How many podcasts have you done?
This will be 71.
71 podcasts. And how are your listenership statistics now versus year one?
Yes, it's grown.
In other words, where are you now versus where you were 6 months or a year ago?
Yeah.
So we can't lose sight of that. When you're in it, it feels like I want it now. I just want this to happen now. But like most things, it takes time.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the understanding of that. You are doing the things that you need to do. I mean, you've done 71 episodes. I've done 16, and I'm going, oh my gosh, when is this thing going to take off? But I always say to people, like, you can only ever judge yourself based on who you were 6 months ago.
Yeah.
We're not here to compete with anyone else. We're not here to compare ourselves to others. This is your journey. If you were doing this full time, for example, and you didn't have the gym and you didn't have the coaching consulting that you do, and you were doing this full time every single day of your life, you'd have a different result.
Yeah.
Because you know, I mean, you follow the guys who do podcasting. You look at guys like Gary Vaynerchuk, even Mr. Beast, right? Everyone looks at Mr. Beast. He was a billionaire by the time he was 27 years old, but he started this when he was in his mid-teens, when nobody was listening to him. Now, how many years does someone like that have to build up? Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, actually said...
I'm a fan of Gary V.
It took him 1,000 videos. You've done 71. It took him 1,000 videos before things started really going.
Yes.
So to get to 1,000 videos, yes, you all know you're committed, and you obviously love what you do. Because you and I both know we can do 30 videos, 30 podcasts, and then go, I'm giving up.
Yeah.
But the success only comes later. So the first thing is do you really want to do it? Does this fulfill you? Like, do you love doing this?
Yeah. Then, I do. I really like the podcast. Yeah.
Then keep doing it. But I don't know if your goals are to monetize it or to do anything on that aspect. But it's
not particularly.
Okay.
No.
It's just you're building content at the moment. And as long as you love what you're doing, maybe don't focus too much on the views and the engagement. It's like I say to my agents all the time, every time you put something out there, but I do my podcast, it goes on YouTube, I might get 100 people viewing it. But I'll walk through the village in Umhlanga and someone will stop me and go, hey, I saw that podcast of whoever it was. I really loved it.
Yeah.
We don't often know how many people see or hear of what we're doing. We don't see them engage with us. So back to what I was saying, I say to my agents, you've got to brand yourself consistently. And every time you put a Facebook or an Instagram or whatever platform you're using, if you're sitting there watching the number of likes you get, you're going to get very demoralized very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, you take your phone in the morning and you're scrolling through Instagram. You don't like everything, but you're consuming it. You're seeing it. So not everyone's going to push that button, but they're watching it. So I always say, don't assume everyone's watching it because they're seeing it. They're seeing it on your scroll. And I've experienced this so many times in my life as well, where I'll go off on a speaking engagement overseas and I'll come back and one of my good mates will bump into me in a coffee shop. I see you in London, or I see you in Mongolia. And first I go, how do you know? And then I go, he saw my post. He didn't like it.
Yeah.
You know. So the thing with branding is it's consistency, and I think something like this, it's consistency, and it's going to just eventually spiral for you. But I would just say, unless you know you're doing absolutely everything that you can to push it, I wouldn't be too demoralized. I would rather sit back and go, wow, look where I am this year versus last.
Yeah.
And track that progress. Are you a better podcaster today than you were 2 years ago? Absolutely, you have to be.
Yeah.
Because you've got the mileage on the clock now. And I think this is the thing with resilience. It's discipline to do the things you know you need to do at the time you need to do it, whether you feel like it or not. But then the resilience kicks in where I'm going to do it until I get to where I want to be.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And then there's some correlations between that and exercise as well, obviously. And
Spot on.
And I always talk about people acting in spite of their emotions, not in response to their emotions.
Yeah.
Because motivation, it's an emotional response. It's very temporary. It's fleeting. And if I use the podcast as an example, if I was relying only on motivation to record a show, to book a guest, to do a post, the podcast wouldn't have lasted very long. It certainly wouldn't have lasted 2 years and 71 episodes. There were times when I acted in spite of my emotion. I wasn't feeling very motivated. I was, making that post was a bit of a drag, or I felt like I needed some time away from social media. But to do it in line with the goals and where you want to go.
Yeah.
And it's the same with exercise. Most of the time, people, myself included, don't want to exercise. It's a drag. It's suffering. It's sometimes,
it's horrible.
Like your body's, everything in your body is telling you to stop.
Yeah.
Or everything in your mind is telling you to stop.
Yeah.
And you have to persevere through that, and you have to continue to act in spite of your emotions, not because of them.
But wouldn't you agree with me? That's why most people don't achieve the goals that they set for themselves.
Yeah.
Like every year, there's the New Year's resolution. I know it sounds so corny to talk about, but that's what happens. We're all motivated in January. But then if we want to lose a few kilos or we want to get into the gym and get fit, those first couple of exercise sessions or those first 2 weeks on a diet, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing that you can possibly do because you're stiff, you're sore, or you're not eating the foods you like. But at the end of the day, that's why I said to you, what is it that you want? You always start with, what do I want? Like, what is going to make me happy? Then how am I going to get there? Then we build the plan. And you know this, you're a personal trainer as well. I want to lose 10 kilos. Right, here's your diet. Or I want to bulk up my shoulders. I want to get fitter. Here's your exercise program. You want to build a podcast station? Here's what you got to do. And then we get into it and we start doing the activities. And because we don't see results straight away, most human beings, we go back to comfort. It's just too uncomfortable. And it's so uncomfortable and I'm not getting the results. I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
So that's why I always start with, what do you want? Like, what is it that you want? I can't tell you that as a coach. And yeah, we're all going to get disillusioned at times. But if this is fundamentally what you want and it makes you feel alive and you're passionate about it, then the journey is not going to be easy, but we've got to just stick to the disciplined steps. And then in the middle of that, that's why I said to you, how might you be holding yourself back? Like, is there anything more that you can do? Or is there something that you're avoiding? Because generally when we're feeling disillusioned, we can also sort of lean away from the behaviors that we need to keep focused. And it's just that reset of going, right, so okay, I'm on the journey. I'm feeling disillusioned, but let me just take a step back and go, wow, where am I here on my journey versus where I was 6 months ago or a year ago?
Yeah.
And we lose sight of that so quickly.
Yeah. There's two things there. First thing is the reason why I wanted to start with that is because I feel like I always think and live by the mantra that if I'm feeling a certain way, then other people must have felt the same way before, right? And if we're having this kind of conversation, then there's going to be other people that have felt the same way. So I think what that means is that for the people listening, it's okay to feel disillusioned. Sometimes we all go through it with our respective journeys, be it in our career, be it in personal goals, etc., even financial goals, whatever task or endeavor people are willing to undertake. But it's to continue to act despite those periods of feeling like you're not getting much bang for your buck in return. But it is just a phase.
That's the discipline.
Yeah.
So I've learned that massively. I mean, I was running at one stage. I just had this little goal that I wanted to run. And what happened, unfortunately, as a byproduct is when you run, you lose a lot of muscle. And people started saying, yes, you're looking scrawly. I didn't realize it until I saw a photo one day. And I was like, whoa, okay. So I started a journey of nutrition and gym workouts. And it's taught me so much on exactly this. Following a disciplined routine, following a disciplined diet, set by an expert who knows what he or she is talking about. And once you have that blueprint from an expert, you've got two choices. You're going to follow it or you're not.
Yeah.
And then also you're going to get results or you're not. And we've got to find that resilience as human beings to push through, because the first 6 to 8 weeks of a gym program are horrible.
Yeah.
You're hurting in places you didn't even know existed, you know. And you wake up in the morning and you go, oh, I'm feeling so stiff. I must be looking so good. And you go into the mirror in the bathroom and you're, what?
Yeah.
Like nothing's changed. And at that point, it can be so disheartening.
Yeah.
But then it's understanding that I've got to push through the 8 to 10 weeks, because when you start seeing the results, like if your podcast suddenly started a little bit of an uptick, suddenly we get that renewed, okay, I'm on the right track, but we've got to make sure we know we're on the right track from the beginning, because we've got a plan from an expert, someone who's done it before, you know. And then you just got to blind faith, follow it with that resilience to keep going until you see results.
Yeah.
But you will have days like that. And so how do you remind yourself that you're on the right track? I stop and I take a step back and I go, okay, I can't compare myself to an oak who's been doing this for 6 years. I can only compare myself to who I was a year ago when I started doing this. Am I better? Yes, keep going. Is there something more I can be doing? Then I've got to look inwards and go, right, what do I need to do?
Yeah, a lot of the battle is just showing up to the gym as well. So I'll give you, you know, Spotify has that Wrapped at the end of every year. Spotify Wrapped, and it gives you your favorite songs that you've listened to. With the podcast, they give you the same thing. They give you your podcast stats for the year, and they compare you to to how you were the previous year. And at the start of this year, it was some stat that like blew my mind. It was like, congratulations, your podcast is either in the top 10 or top 20% of video podcasts on Spotify. Okay. And I thought to myself, well, that can't be the case. You know, why? Like, I mean, the listenership is not through the roof. It's growing, but it's not like anything to brag about necessarily. But then I thought, there's a lesson in that, because I've stuck at it. At that stage, it would have been a year and a half, because I started mid-year through 2023, and it was Spotify Wrapped 2024, end of 2024, start of this year. So I'd been doing a video podcast for a year and a half at that stage. And I was like, the lesson there is just show up. The fact that I'd continued doing a video podcast for a year and a half and didn't stop, that immediately put me in the top 20% of all video podcasts globally, because 80% of the people who'd started had not
but just
continued.
Tell me again, what was this thing that they awarded you with, or what was the statistic specifically?
It was, you're in the top 20% or top 10%, I can't remember which one it was, of video podcasts on Spotify.
Globally?
Yes.
So why didn't I know about that?
I did put it on social media.
I would pump the life out of that.
Yeah.
From a branding perspective, whenever you put stuff out, one of the top 20% watched podcasts in the world on Spotify, like that's powerful. I would have that on every single post I put out. It starts infiltrating into people's minds, like, oh my gosh, Clinton Shum, like one of the top 20% in the world. That's powerful branding.
Yeah, it is. And I perhaps need to milk that a bit more. But it was a lesson for me, like just staying the trip and just being consistent immediately with it, and that you can apply that to anything in life. If you just stay the trip, 80% of your competition will eventually fall by the wayside. Yeah. Because the reality is most people would have given up. 80% of the folks would have given up, and then you just have to work and fight and compete amongst the remaining 20%.
Absolutely.
And it's the same in the gym. So I put an email out 2 days ago, and I said the most important rep scheme in the gym is 3 times 52. 3 days a week, 52 weeks a year.
Okay.
That's what you got to do, man.
Consistently.
You got to exercise. That is your most important rep scheme for anybody who wants to be healthy, who wants to change their lifestyle. That is the best program, is the one that you figure out how to stick to and adhere to.
Yeah.
Once you can adhere to a program, then let's start getting into the nitty-gritties about, all right, X, Y, and Z. Okay, switch that exercise order around. You can have the best program in the world. If the guy doesn't go and do it and adhere to it, you're on a hiding to nothing. And the second thing that I'll say, going back to your New Year's resolution is what I've learned now in dealing with people and behavior modification and that sort of thing, is to take somebody from not doing any exercise, and then getting them to try and implement a diet, to train 3 to 4 times a week, to get their step count in. They may be doing 2,000, 2,500 steps a day because they're just sitting the whole day, and then expecting them to get to 8,000 steps a day. They're setting themselves up for failure, and that there's no ways, realistically speaking, that person is going to make that jump just like that, to go from doing nothing for 5 years to then doing everything a week later, and then not hit the skids, you know. And that comes back to your point of compare yourself to who you were yesterday or to who you were 6 months ago or a month ago, whatever the case is. Okay, start. What's the heaviest load that you can carry at the moment? Proverbially speaking, metaphorically speaking. It can be the smallest thing. It could be just driving to the gym. Even if you don't go in, you know, you've now got to the gym, which is better than what you did yesterday. Yesterday, you didn't even drive to the gym. Maybe
you tried.
Maybe, yeah, exactly. At least you got your gym clothes on, you know, or at least you got 1,000 extra steps compared to what you would normally have done. And then you build that positive momentum, you know, and then it's like atomic habits, you know, you start something small and then you get, very seldom will somebody drive to the gym with their gym clothes on and then not go into the gym and not do something.
I've done that.
Have you?
Yeah, because I walked in and the gym was so full, I was like, stuff, there's something out here.
It happens,
Yeah.
but small compounding decisions and figuring out, okay, how can I improve day to day without setting myself up for failure? So maybe, like, I might say to a person, okay, this is going to be a massive jump in your lifestyle. Let's just park the diet for the first 4 weeks. Let's get you into the gym first. Come and train 3 times a week. That's already 12 sessions of training that you weren't doing for the last 5 years. Let's just settle into that. There's no pressure. We chat about the diet after 4 weeks. Have you trained 12 times out of 12? Brilliant. So we've now established a baseline of what you can do. Okay. Why don't we sort out our breakfasts? Okay, if we can't do breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it's too hectic. Why don't we go, okay, so now we're training 12 times a week, 12 times a month, and now your breakfasts are healthy. That's after 2 months. Okay, cool, we got that waxed. All right, now, what about lunches? And then by the time you finish a year from there, the person's completely transformed. They've got to where they wanted to get to, but in like bite-sized chunks. Whereas sometimes I found you give everybody with a full whack of info in the beginning, and you say, right, this is the story, balls to the wall, and the mentally resilient ones will probably give it a good crack for like 4 to 8 weeks, but then you follow up with them at the end of the year, they're pretty much back to where they were, because it was just too much.
The big thing there is the accountability element as well. So if left to themselves, they won't persist. Most people won't persist. I was actually quite surprised. The one that I did, the guy that did it for me, he's not a personal trainer, but he uses an app. And I was like, I know I'm not going to push through with this because I need Oak standing next to me in the gym. But what was so amazing, even just the accountability of this app, is after every exercise, I got to push a button and submit everything that I've done.
Yeah.
And at the end, if you've hit some personal best, it gives you a little high five. And I actually got to the point where I was like, if I didn't get that high five, I was so gutted. But also I know that when I push the button, he's going to see. So the slightest form of accountability is so important. Because when left to ourselves, if we feel like skipping Wednesday, legs day, we're going to skip it. No one's going to know. But when you got that person there that's rooting for you, knows what you're working towards, and is just standing over your shoulder going, hey, this was your goal. Come on, you got to keep pushing. It's so powerful. It's so important.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting how that whole space has evolved with even motivation, behavior change, the fitness apps, and keeping people accountable that way. But taking a slight diversion, I picked up the phone to you, it must have been about a year ago, talking about public speaking, and I'd been asked to do a gig, and I didn't know where to start with respect to my pricing, and it was such a valuable lesson, and you were very gracious with the advice that you gave me. And it's something that stuck with me about knowing your worth, and especially being in the service business where you can't necessarily you can't apply reason to a product that's in retail. Like, okay, it's cost me this much to make. Here's my markup. This is how I've arrived at my price to the consumer. Service is very different. Yeah. Putting a value on a service, because you're almost then at the same time attaching a monetary value to yourself, because you are the service provider. Clinton Shum is the coach. You're the coach, etc. What advice do you have to people who are perhaps in the service industry who need to start to place a value on how much they should charge for their speaking or their coaching or X, Y, and Z?
First thing is, if you're charging nothing, you're doing yourself a massive disservice. And I remember that conversation. In fact, I actually saw a speaker on LinkedIn. He's one of the top speakers in South Africa, and he travels around the world. And he put a story up on LinkedIn talking about how he got so excited he was invited to speak overseas by one of the top companies in the world. And at the end of the conversation, they'd agreed on everything, what he would speak about, the dates, the times. And the organizer said to him, and just so that you know, we don't pay any of our speakers. And he turned the job down. And I think that was the right decision. Here's one of the biggest companies in the world with almost unlimited budget, and they're taking a position of, we're more valuable than you. You need us. You need us. Sort of
yes.
thing. And everyone who goes into speaking and coaching struggles with this. Like, if you're a new coach and you've just spent all that time doing all your studies and your pracs, etc., you're obviously going to be nervous the first couple of times you do it. It's the same with a real estate agent who's dealing with their first client. Right? But the first thing you've got to understand is to get yourself into a position where you are sought after as a speaker says a lot. No one's going to ask you to speak if you don't have some value behind you. And if you're a coach, you've probably gone through a lot of investment, time, money, research, spending hours on pracs. If you're doing all that and investing all that and not prepared or too nervous to charge, I just feel you're starting out on the wrong foot. So the first thing I would do is you've got to also understand what markets will pay. So I remember I said to you, I got some of the best advice from a top speaker in South Africa. He doesn't live here anymore. He actually had his own speaker agency, and he gave me the grading that I gave you. And I just stuck to that. And I remember when I started speaking, I did pitch myself higher than a lot of the local Durban speakers, but I don't recall too many times where anybody did not want to pay. If someone's looking for a free speaker, they'll find a free speaker. But if you really believe in your value, and I remember you told me that somebody contacted you by seeing your podcast.
Yeah.
And I said to you, that's powerful because your brand is already talking for you out in the marketplace. They came to you. So just have an understanding of what the market pays speakers at different levels, and don't be afraid to ask for a value. When I did my coaching qualification as well, we had this conversation in the class. And I remember the lady who was teaching us and training us, she asked us all individually, what do you think you're going to start charging at? And the range was from like 0 to high. Everybody had a different perception of the value they can offer. But I just think you can't be offering value to the world for nothing.
Yeah. Do you think on average, from your experience, people have a tendency to undervalue themselves first?
Always.
Or overvalue?
Under.
Why do you think
Always.
that is?
Because we don't believe that the world sees that value in us yet, especially when we're new. I remember when I started out speaking, my belief system was, if I speak for free, I'm going to get mileage, I'm going to get lots of speaking engagements, and there'll be somebody in the audience who will like what I'm saying, and they'll reach out, and they'll book me. How many times do you think that ever happened?
I'm guessing none.
None. None. Because if people can get you for free, I promise you they'll get you for free.
Yeah.
So it just took a conscious decision on my part to say, this is what I offer, this is what I talk on, and this is what I charge. And I never had a problem. You have the odd person who goes, I don't have the budget. But to start at 0, you're going to spend a lot of time fighting that back. Same in my office. If the agents go low on their commission, now everybody talks. Grant
Yeah.
Gavin, he speaks for free, get him. Your phone won't stop ringing, and you'll be very popular.
Yeah.
But it's
But
not
with nothing to show
it's
for
not
it.
serving you, you know.
Yeah.
It's not serving you. And like it's the same for coaching.
Mm.
And also on the coaching side, there's the investment element. And I learned this lesson. There was an American guy who came out here. We actually were here at the Durban Country Club. It's Suncoast. And I remember they were taking you for the one-on-one interviews to see if they were going to sign you up or you were going to pay. And I'll never forget, it was $10,000 back in 2013. So it's about 100,000 Rand. I'd never paid that on coaching in my life. I'd had coaches. But I remember sitting there going, okay, I liked the concept. I believed that I was going to learn something that was going to push me out of my comfort zone. And it's one of the best decisions I ever made for where my life went from that point. But I remember sitting there going, okay, if you're going to pay this, you better flip and do it. Like,
Yeah.
don't pay this and don't commit. And it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me then, because now what I've seen with people who come to me, when they pay something, they're committed. Whenever I've helped somebody for free, they don't do anything.
Yeah.
So there's a value that is attached to the service that you charge, where the person who you're coaching is invested. And it's quite a powerful dynamic.
That's already like that first step of accountability is the fact that you have purchased something
Yeah.
and you need to redeem the value from that purchase.
Yeah.
So that even that alone is sometimes enough to hold a person accountable. And similar to the training, I guess, as well. You've paid for a service in advance for me to train person Joe Soap for a month, and they are going to be held accountable because they've paid for that training.
Also, say someone comes to you here and they want to transform their body because they're really low and they're really unhappy. They're disillusioned, right? And they come to you and they go, right, Clint, can you help me? And you go, I can absolutely help you. I'll give you the program. I'll give you the diets. I'll phone you every single day. I will give you all of myself and all of the value that I can add based on all the experience I've had in this industry, in this profession. All you got to do is do it, and you're going to pay me for that service. If that person goes, can you discount me? They're already showing that they're backing out. And you know you can change that. You know you can change their life.
Yeah.
You know that. And if you know that, you don't need to do it for free.
Yeah. That's the perfect example that I use for people when they come into the gym as well. So I've got you for 3 hours a week.
Yeah.
Like if they're coming in 3 times a week. There are so many hours in a week outside of that. It's like 2% of the time I've got you where I can manage you, make sure you're doing the exercises correctly, hold you accountable, try and impart as much knowledge as I can, give you as many different tools as I can to keep you going in between sessions. But the reality is there's a very small percentage of the week that I have access to you and to hold you accountable. It's the decisions that you're going to make outside of the gym that are going to determine your success. I can give you the tools to say choose that, not that, but the reality is it's up to you.
Yeah.
It is 100% up to you. And I find little hacks and ways that you can go about it to set yourself up for success. So one of the things that I've learned with having a toddler, with having Grayson around, is to really try to make the small changes to make my day a little bit easier the following day. So something that I've got into the habit of now is making sure that my coffee station is set up in the morning ready for me when I wake up, because that's like my pleasure. Like I sit down, I have my cup of coffee, and then I get ready for the day, and then I head to the gym. And just something like making sure that the portafilter is clean, that everything is organized. My mug is literally upside down at the coffee machine. There's water filled up at the back of the machine. Like just something like that is a catalyst for starting the day on the right foot, you know. Having my work clothes and my gym clothes laid out ahead of time, you know. It is so, because first of all, okay, now I wake up, I only realize on the morning that some of the clothes didn't dry, that it was on the washing line. So now those are damp. Now I've got to go find other clothes. Now I can't find a pair of socks. Now I'm rushing. Then I go and try and make a coffee and pour the filter out, empty the old coffee, fill the water. Now I'm 5 minutes behind time. Now I'm racing to the gym. I get here, maybe 2 or 3 minutes late, I'm racing, I'm got to unpack my stuff, the client's there waiting for me, and it just escalates. And that start of the day is just so frantic then, after, which could be avoided if I just set aside 5 minutes the night before, has then saved me on what ends up being sometimes 60 minutes to 90 minutes of stress and like franticness.
But isn't that part of discipline?
Yeah.
Just being prepared, because if you, the client, not doing that routine and your clothes aren't ready and your coffee, it's just giving you excuses not to show up, because then you can go, well, I'm out of time now, I can't go to gym today. I remember on mine when I changed my eating, but I wasn't eating enough. I didn't really eat breakfast.
This is to put on a bit of muscle.
When I come out of my running phase. And so I wasn't eating breakfast. I was probably at best having 2 meals a day. And this coach was like, you got to eat 5 times a day. I was like, what? Like, I won't have the time. And you know what I did? Even today, I've got an Outlook calendar entry in my diary for 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock, every 3 hours, 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 7 o'clock. That goes, eat. So I get reminded to eat. And in the beginning, that was so helpful, because you get busy during the day and then suddenly your phone goes, oh, what appointment is this? Oh, I got to eat. So there's that side of it. And there's also the preparation side of it. I can't suddenly at 10 o'clock go, oh, what am I going to... And I promise you, if my coach is listening to this, he's going to phone me and say, you don't do this now. You slip out of it. But I was so disciplined at the beginning, like on the eating side. And it was all these little things, like you put your clothes out in the evening, you've got to have your steps in place to help you remain disciplined. Because when life comes at you, you will always have a reason not to go and do what you need to do. Whether it's a business, whether it's personal health, you can find an excuse not to do anything so easily.
Yeah. No, 100%. Tell me about your podcast. So when you were here, episode 3, we were chatting about Thoughtonomy and the book.
Was I episode 3?
You were episode
Really?
3. Yeah.
Cool.
And we were chatting about, at that stage, Thoughtonomy had come out recently, and we were chatting about the book, and now there's a podcast, the Thoughtonomy podcast.
Yeah.
And I was going through quite a few of the episodes, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. It's got a nice local flavor to it as well. Tell me about that journey that you've been on, and perhaps some lessons that you've learned so far.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do more branding, I guess, around the book. I mean, I've done well with the sales. I found that if I'm speaking, then I have sales after the events. But I wasn't doing as much speaking because I dived back into Remax at the beginning of this year more. So I thought the podcast would be a good idea just to give it legs, you know. And I really enjoy it. But like anything, and you'll know, the challenge is just always staying one step ahead of your schedule and having people ready to talk.
Yeah.
And I'm silly. I've done this once before in my life. I used to have the Durban Entrepreneurs Club here at the Durban Country Club. I did it for 5 years. And that was just finding one speaker a month. And that was hard. And by the end of 5 years, I was like, who now, you know? And I'm finding with the podcast, it's already getting to that point. So that's the challenge, is always having that pipeline of people onto the show. But the show, it's the talking itself, I mean, just like we're talking now, it's so easy. I love it. And I like to find somebody who's got a story that you don't know about, or somebody who you might see as successful, and we all see as successful, but you don't know how long it's taken them to get there. So I like uncovering the journey and the challenges, where the story people don't know.
Yeah.
That fascinates me. Like I enjoy that side of it.
What have you learned, if you reflect on it personally so far?
That everyone's actually the same.
How so?
We all face the same challenges. We all start out things and we're nervous and we're fearful and we don't believe we're good enough, and we nearly quit. You know, everybody has those same limiting beliefs, the imposter syndrome type thinking. And when you hear somebody successful, or someone who you see as successful, tell you that that's how they used to think, it resonates with you. Like you go, wow, I'm the same as you.
Yeah.
So my idea is that if you're hearing a really successful person or someone who's been successful on the podcast talking about the same challenges that you're experiencing today, it just gives you a little bit of confidence and hope you know, in terms of, well, maybe I am thinking about this wrong. I'm caught in that tough stage now. And so was he, and so was she. But look, they persisted.
Yeah. Do you think that those high achievers, as we perceive them, successful in inverted commas, because I guess it's on what metric are you wanting to evaluate success? Do you think that that feeling ever goes away, that feeling of not being good enough or imposter syndrome of self-doubt? Because I've noticed that irrespective of how successful they've been in their respective endeavors, it doesn't seem obvious to me that that feeling ever goes away.
No. And when I was part of the Entrepreneurs Organization, I was we had a forum of 8 of us on a monthly basis. And my business was the smallest in that room. And I would listen to my colleagues in that environment talking about how lucky they were that they grew their business. And I used to sit there going, no, you're not lucky. You've worked your backside off for years. And it's now paying off, but don't forget. And I used to listen to the talk and go, we all think the same, actually.
Yeah.
We all think the same. And again, I had a conversation with a Remax colleague from Cape Town this morning, and she's part of the most successful office in slap bang in the middle of Cape Town. And her language was the same to me this morning. You know, there's always this fear, and I guess that's what drives us. There's this fear that it's going to fall apart, or I'm going to do something wrong, or I'm going to make a mistake, and this is all going to be gone tomorrow. And that fear sometimes drives us. You know, those highly driven individuals, a lot of them are driven by a fear of losing it. When I say it, I mean the business or their success or whatever it may be. And we all know a couple of bad decisions in business, and it can happen. But if you just keep on using what you did to get yourself there, plus remain relevant, you can't be stale. That's why growth mindset is so important. Always have to keep on learning. The minute you stop learning or you take your foot off the intellectual capital side of who you are, you can become irrelevant quickly because the world changes so quickly.
Yeah.
So if we always just continue committed to being a better version of ourselves, that shouldn't happen, barring some environmental disaster like COVID or whatever. You know, that's you. But yeah, I do believe a lot of high achievers are driven by a fear of not having or of losing what they've built.
Do you think that's a sustainable way of living from a mental wellness standpoint?
Well, it brings stress.
Yeah. To be constantly running from something instead of running towards something.
Yeah.
There's a big difference, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, I've experienced it. Mine was taking over from my parents. My biggest fear was destroying what they had built. I remember I was 27 years old. That was the biggest fear I had. But again, like once you start doing it and you start believing in your own abilities, it did fade. It took a while, but it did eventually fade. But I agree with what you're saying. If you're constantly living in fear, I mean, fear is an emotion. So if you're constantly living in fear and it's creating stress and anxiety, it's not a good thing, no. But that's why so many business people get stressed out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Is there a way then to channel that? I'm reading between the lines on what you said earlier when you said it's not necessarily a bad thing. That fear of failure, do you think that then sometimes if you don't have that, complacency sets in and then you see a deterioration in the business or in performance in any way or form?
Look, it's exactly what you just said. It's the running towards versus running away from. So that's why I always try and get people focus on what you want and just channel all your energies to do the right things to get towards what you want. I always use the example, if someone, I keep going back to this fat and thin thing, so if anyone's listening getting irritated, sorry, but if you wake up in January and you go, I don't want to be fat. Now I'm focusing on what I don't want. I don't want to be unfit. So we go to the gym and we start doing a few exercises and all of a sudden we don't feel fat anymore, but we haven't got to the ideal body that we want. But because we don't feel fat, we stop because we're comfortable.
Yeah.
As opposed to going, this is what I want. This is the weight that I want to be at. This is the physical shape and condition or fitness I want to be in. And I keep working. It's a constant evolution towards being the healthiest person I can be in whatever context that is. But if you're focusing on, I don't want to be poor or I don't want to be fat, As soon as you're not poor, you're comfortable now and you stop. Because my focus was wrong. So that's why I always say, what do you want to achieve? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? And let's just keep on going until we get to it. And then even when we get to it, we can reassess and climb the next mountain.
Does that have some elements of like NLP there?
Yes.
that focal point on what you want? Because I know that you are an NLP practitioner.
Yes. So the unconscious mind does not recognize the negative.
Okay.
So if you're constantly telling yourself negative talk, or if you're constantly saying, I don't want to be fat, it's just hearing fat. So we switch the focus to what do I want? Healthy, fit. Focus on what you want. And that's why even with my staff, I won't start a coaching session with them until they tell me the number they want to earn for the year. And you know how many people can't give you a number?
They don't know what they're aiming at.
No. It's either they're too embarrassed to say a number that they don't believe that they can get, or they're too embarrassed to say a number that you don't believe they can get. But I always say to them, every number is achievable. And it is. Like, if they want to earn R1 million a year, I can break it down into the number of phone calls they have to make a day. And if they want to earn 2 million, it's fine. I'll just add the activities. So the top high producers, they are doing all their numbers, they're doing all their activities, and they're sacrificing a lot. They maybe don't have as much party time or family time. Anything's achievable. It's just how much are you prepared to dive into the activities. If you really want it, you'll get there.
Yeah, there's an opportunity cost for everything.
Yeah.
So by saying yes to something, it means that you're automatically saying no to something else.
Yeah.
And then I think that is one of the big challenges as well, especially as I and Lisa as well have headed into parenthood, is now all of a sudden you start to reevaluate what's the most important way of spending your time.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine what it's like for single moms, as an example. But yes, then how do I allocate my time effectively? What is important? Because saying yes to hitting a specific number, let's say it's 2 million rand a year, means that I'm saying no to something at home, or time with the family, or whatever. So I think it's important for people to get super clear on what they want. I think that is the message here. Yeah,
that's why I used the word sacrifice, because even the single mom could earn 4 million rand a year, but the sacrifice would be time away from the kids. Because you've only got so many hours of the day, and that's why we say you've got to know what your priorities are. And you can only give your time in one of pretty much 4 directions: family, business, community, which is friends and stuff like that, and yourself. Those are the 4 things. And it's about just ranking the priorities and then using your time based on what's getting number 1 priority of my time. Because if my business is going to get number 1 priority, there's less time for the other 3. Or if, like on my side, I'm divorced, so I'm like a single dad when I've got my kids. My daughter's with me full time, but my son every second week. So I've got to manage my time based on my number 1 priority is actually my kids. It's my family. I'll drop anything for my family. So I've got to fit. Once I've taken care of what their needs are and what our family needs are, then my business fits in. Now that might mean I don't have as much time for friends or community or playing paddle or even myself if I haven't ranked myself on the priority. Yeah. So there will be a sacrifice, but we have to be very clear on what's our priority. And your priorities can shift over time. There's seasons for everything.
Absolutely. So I say to people, and I use this analogy for myself as well, is I don't train in the gym flat out the whole year round. I will generally do maybe 2 blocks of between 2 and 3 months per year where like I'm training balls to the wall, really, really focused on getting stronger, etc., because of that exact thing. Like there's seasons for everything. And I find that to be able to invest that much time into it all year round would be unrealistic. and it wouldn't necessarily be something that I'd want to do either, because injuries creep in, aches and pains, etc. So I've generally will train flat out in the weight room for probably 2 blocks of 2 months. And then in between, I'll maintain and I'll keep things ticking over. And I never stop going to the gym.
Yeah.
But like, it's not, this is one of my major priorities for about 2 months, 2 blocks of 2 months. It is one of my major priorities where I will focus exclusively on that. But for the rest of the year, it's just plod along. And then when you start to feel it, like in your tummy a little bit, you're like, okay, I need to go here. Like, I need to get going again. And then, okay, cool. Right, here we go. Yeah. Here's another 8 weeks. Put it in, and then we're good to go. And then at least I'm good to go for another 4 or 5 months after that.
And it's hard with kids. I understand it's hard with kids because as parents, we give to our kids first. We always do. I don't want to say always, but more so with mothers. I think guys, we are conditioned to be providers and out there in the work and leading the way. Whereas the ladies are conditioned to be the providers in terms of looking after the kids and the family. But I mean, life has changed so much. You need 2-income families. Ladies in the workforce are very powerful. They're doing very, very well, and they're hugely valuable in terms of the positions they take up in the workforce. And now we're all trying to manage this professional side with our family side as well. And it creates a lot of guilt. I coach a lot of ladies in the workforce, and guilt is the biggest thing, where if they're forging ahead with a career, there's the guilt that they're not at home or somebody else is there.
Yeah, Cindy Norquist spoke about that when she was on the show with me. Yeah, 100%.
That's prevalent. It really is. But again, I was just trying to say to people, whether you're the mom or the dad, part of those priorities, one of them was yourself. Like, what time am I giving to myself to make sure that I'm okay? Because time management's all about priorities, like I said, but energy management is about what priority you're giving yourself. And most people will put themselves at the bottom of that list. And unfortunately, if we do that, we get to a point where the tank runs empty.
Yeah.
And if the tank runs empty, like, how much are you able to give to the other 3 priorities? So I try and get people to think about putting themselves as number one, and people hate it because that sounds selfish.
Yeah.
But if I'm not operating at 100%, I'm not there for my kids, I'm not there for my business, not there for my friends. I'm sitting in a psychiatrist's office on a couch, or I'm drinking wine at home. So we've got to find some time to give to ourselves, whether it's the gym workout, the walk on the beach, time with my favorite pet, whatever it is that fills my cup. We have to, as human beings, recognize that we should be priority number one, and it's not selfish.
Yeah. Two things on that. Sorry. Yeah. With my shrink, I was telling him about, how sometimes I'll come home and I feel really low on energy, and it's been a 12-hour day. I've been in transit for 30 minutes here, 30 minutes back. So 13 hours door to door. And I wasn't giving the best of myself to my family when I got home. And he said to me, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. He said, so you are working hard and giving the best of you to the people at work, only for the reason why you're doing it, you're giving the worst of you to the people who are the reason why you're doing it. You're working so hard, and then yet the people you're doing it for are getting the worst of you. And I was like, he's like, so then what are you doing? And I was like, it's quite something, to be on the hamster wheel and pursuing things that that you can easily rationalize, chasing a number, chasing a target, a revenue, but then not be mindful about what that might mean in the other areas of your life, And the second thing that I wanted to say is that carving out time for yourself, and in the same time also encouragement of yourself and of other people, it is surprising how little you actually need to feel rejuvenated, to feel yourself, to feel like, you know what, I'm actually fucking doing okay. And it is astonishing to me how little encouragement people need to keep going. And the same for yourself, you know, for myself at least. It is astonishing how little time I have to carve out just for me to fill my cup up, and then I can express that outward to the people around me. And so it's not selfish. And I think people, when they think about it, they're like, okay, that means I've got to do this, and I've got to go to the gym, and I've got to, you know, it's going to take up 2-3 hours of the day. No, not necessarily. If you set aside 10 minutes of journaling, writing about your feelings, how you're feeling that day, 5 things that you're grateful for, experiencing and expressing gratitude in quiet, in solace, just you sitting with you, just that makes a massive difference to the rest of the day.
Yeah. We were taught, I actually got in my book, it's called the 10-10-10 routine, where you get up first thing in the morning, the house is quiet, kids aren't awake. It's 10 minutes of gratitude. So sitting like almost in meditation and going through all the things you're grateful in your life, 10 minutes. Then 10 minutes of reading something positive. So it's not going to be like 50 Shades of Grey. It's going to be like a Chicken Soup for the Soul or a book like that, a positive book. And then 10 minutes of journaling. And now you're putting everything into writing. And journaling for me was the hardest, as I'd never done it before. But you stick with that, you do it every single day. And you start to feel a difference. That's half an hour. When I wake up with my coffee, but I got to do it. You know, I got to do it. And that's, as you say, just this, it doesn't have to be going to the gym.
Yeah. It really is amazing. And I notice such a big difference when I do those things consistently, journaling, expressing gratitude, because we are what we focus on. You know, how we
always
how
want
we think.
more. We always want something else. We always want something more, and we forget. And that's just human beings. We're always trying to attain something, and we forget, what is it that I actually have already? That's powerful. When you shift that.
Yeah, and it comes back to moving towards something rather than being dragged or being pulled. You know, moving towards, moving forward is rooted in gratitude. You know, it's rooted in the gratitude of where you find yourself and the things that you can be grateful for in your life, and then moving towards something constructive that you'd like to continue to build on that, rather than this loss aversion of, I'm going there because I just don't want to lose this thing, you know. And I've just finished Supernatural, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Becoming Supernatural, and he speaks a lot about the power of gratitude and what it means to focus on things, because when you focus on being grateful, you then bring into your life by association more things to be grateful about, rather than if you focus on what you don't want to lose, invariably you start losing stuff.
Yeah,
you know,
we all fall into that trap. Like, don't make any assumption that just because I'm a coach or you're a coach that we've got this shit together, because we don't. We're all human. That's why I say we're all human beings. We all speak the same language.
Yeah.
We all have fears and insecurities and self-doubts and all these little things that you've just mentioned now. They're all good little tips just to refocus on what's important.
Yeah.
Because there's always more. There's always more you can want and more you're going to want to achieve.
Yeah. And I think that's rooted in also what it means to be resilient, right? So resilient is, okay, there's 2 aspects of it, in my opinion. One is how much can you endure? So there's an aspect of longevity. How long can you endure something for? But then the second aspect to it is how quickly can you return to baseline when something has thrown you off? So how quickly do you get back to making the coffee and setting out your clothes when things have been a bit hectic? Grayson didn't sleep, emergency, whatever. How quickly do I revert back to baseline? Okay, we're back into the routine of it now.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it means to be resilient. How quickly do you get back into the gym? If you've been on a work conference and for a week you just haven't had access to a gym, how quickly do you get back to it? That's resilience. How quickly do you get back to your norm, you know? And I think that was a nice way of framing it for me, is that there's the two aspects of it, the enduring and then how quickly do you get back to it. Tell me, one of my favorite questions, have you changed your mind on anything recently?
I think I change my mind every day. I change my mind on where I put my focus. January this year, I bought out my family in the Remax business, so I'm the owner of that now. And I found that when I jumped into that, the speaking stopped. I almost made a conscious decision to go, okay, I'm all in here now. I'm going to jump into this. And then I go 3 or 4 months, and then I go, okay, I miss speaking now, so I'm going to start doing a bit more of that. I mean, I'm changing my mind all the time. But in terms of anything like fundamental or theoretical, I changed my mind on crypto.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I changed my mind on crypto. I'd been like dabbling in it, but I've been reading up a lot on it. I think for many years, this crypto and Bitcoin, you kind of heard about it, but you put a little bit in just so you didn't miss out, fear of missing out. But I really started researching XRP and Ripple, the middle of last year. And I've changed my mind. There we go. I've changed my mind on where I think future wealth can be created for me and my family on that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's very interesting. And then what prompted the willingness to invest more time and attention into exploring whether that was something that you were willing to change your mind on?
Yeah, I am that sort of person where I go, if I don't know enough on it, I need to go and learn about it. I think that came from writing the book. You know, the whole concept of Thoughtonomy is you need to go and find the information out for yourself. Don't just take from what somebody else says. And I think if you're going to put money into something, you need to know what it is. Yeah, I know in the financial world, you have financial advisors, but even the guys who I've, like one of my best mates, he's running a hedge fund in London. He's got a super hard job. When I talk to him about crypto, he still goes, oh no, it's a bubble, it's going to burst. Now, if I listen to him, look, he may be right, but he's not invested in it.
Yeah.
He's never been and I don't think he's taken the time to, and I'm surprised because he's a super sharp guy. When I start reading and learning and getting my own knowledge, now I can make my own decisions. I don't actually need an advisor if I've taken the time to go and research. And I've become quite fascinated by just learning about what this is all about. And then once you have the knowledge, you can go, okay, am I prepared to invest and take the risk or not?
Sure, that's fascinating. I think it's such an important concept to be able to give yourself the freedom to change your mind on something, to change your position, to be like, okay, I believe X, and to have that freedom of mind to be like, okay, I believe X until somebody can prove otherwise. And then if I have enough evidence to the contrary, then I'm going to now believe Y.
Yeah. And also it's what you know. So I was brought up in a family that was very much property. And my dad used to say the properties that he was accumulating will be for his retirement. So he never went big into stocks and shares. Whereas my mate, he was investing in stocks and shares with his dad when he was 13. We'd be sitting in class, he'd be telling us about all the shares he owns. I'd be like, what? Like, I don't even know what a stock is, you know?
Yeah.
And you can't just do the same things as your parents did because the world changes, you know? So I think it's also that, it's just taking responsibility for your future and making sure you know what's going on at all times.
Yeah, I love that. Taking responsibility for your future. Grant, where can people find you if they want to maybe get your book or find you in different public speaking gigs and that sort of thing?
GrantGavin.com is for the speaking. Thoughtonomybook.co.za is for the book. I should actually link the two together. Instagram at Grant, just search Grant Gavin. There's not too many of us with two first names like that. That's where I am.
Do you remember there was that guy called Scott? He was on the carte blanche dude, or the Mnet guy.
Yeah.
The people in the 90s will remember that one.
I actually saw something the other night on Netflix, that documentary, Amy Bradley is missing. The girl that goes missing on the cruise ship.
Yeah.
Her brother's name was Brad Bradley. I was like, Really? Your parents named you Bradley?
Yeah, Brad.
Sorry if anyone is named Bradley out there. I do apologize.
No, that's okay. I'm sure it's not the first time.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being
Pleasure.
on the show. Links will be in the show notes. Everybody go and check it out.
Thanks, James.
Thanks.
Nice chatting.
Not so fast. It is such a cool feeling when I see that Spotify subscribers number increase on the weekly, when I see the number of people listening to the episodes going up, and it really makes a huge difference. Have you ever done something and you feel so good when you get rewarded by some positive feedback and you really feel like you're making a difference? That's what it means to me, and that's how I feel. And it goes a long way. If you like the show, share it and subscribe it. Thank you humbly, and I'll see you next week.